There Shall Come a Podcast. A podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
Welcome back once again, true believers, to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I'm Christopher Golden. And Brian, I say a happy and healthy Excelsior to you, my friend.
An Excelsior to you as well, my friend. We are, of course, self-isolating, social distancing from each other, recording this via Skype, as we always do.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is that we're usually recording the day before, the day of the time that we post the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But this week we find ourselves a week ahead for technical reasons. The episode people heard last week was recorded the week before that. Right. And that means that whatever commentary we gave last week about the state of the world may not have been pertinent anymore. So anything we might say about, you're talking about social distancing. I mean, by next week, we could both be in the ground.
Yeah, we could be there could be martial law. We just don't know. I ran into that with my other podcast, The Horror Show with Brian Keene. Of course, we have a news segment on there, so I wanted to. My initial thought was to report on cancellations and such, and I realized recording it on a Monday for airing it on a Thursday, it's pointless to do that because things change so fast now.
Right. By the hour.
But I will say to folks, no matter what the situation in the country is next week, if you're listening to this, you're probably at home and you're probably starting to go a little stir crazy. So I would remind you that every single episode of Defenders Dialogue is available for free wherever you listen to it normally. If that's Apple or Spotify or YouTube or Stitcher, wherever you listen to it, every episode is there for free. Go back through the archives and binge us. And if you run out of episodes of Defenders Dialogue, there is The Horror Show with Brian Keene. There is Chris's former show, Three Guys with Beards.
Which I think if Jim Moore has his way, Three Guys with Beards will be coming back. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Brian, but you mentioned Three Guys with Beards, and that caused me to bring up the fact that Jim said it's coming back. And that makes me, it occurs to me that we should mention that even though people will be hearing this a week from now, we should mention that our friend Jim Moore was pronounced cancer-free yesterday after a harrowing almost full year of treatment.
That's right. Very great news. Because of the situation in the country, they're unable to remove his trachea tube at this point, but he's had it since last summer, so I guess he can suffer it a little more longer.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it sprang.
No, that's okay. And as you were saying that, I should mention to our listeners, because of the situation in the country, my 11-year-old, soon-to-be 12-year-old in 2 days, Dungeon Master 77.1 is sitting here with me, and he's whispering something to me, but I don't know what it is. So you can. Are you being too loud? No. He was crunching a potato chip and playing Minecraft, and he wondered if he was being too loud. Well, no, you are not, buddy. But
happy
Mr.
early
Chris
birthday to Dungeon Master 77.1.
That's right. Happy birthday from Christopher Golden. How about that?
Thank you, guys.
The Christopher Golden just wished you a happy birthday.
That's right.
You're not his favorite YouTuber, though, so that's not
well,
special.
That's totally fine.
Dad got his favorite YouTuber to wish him a happy birthday last year. So,
well, keep upping the ante, Dad. I'm sure you'll. So, I also will say that if you are stuck at home and self-isolating or quarantined, that almost all of the comics that we've been covering are available, I believe, on Comixology. So that if you want to only be digital to avoid even the specter of being delivered something in the mail that might be contagious, you can get most of the stuff online.
That's right, you can.
So go follow along. Anyway,
right.
All right, so Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 23
Today
and 24.
we wrap up our coverage of Marvel's Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We're going to be covering issues 23 and 24. Same creative team that we've had throughout. And we open with Godzilla back to full stature, materializing from Dr. Doom's time machine in the middle of Manhattan, right in front of a Jaws 2 marquee, Chris.
I know, and that made me happy too, Brian. That marquee for Jaws 2 opening in Times Square. One of the things that I really enjoy watching old movies on Turner Classic Movies is when they show us movie marquees in the movie we're watching.
Yeah.
So we could see what else is sort of contemporary with the era that we're watching it. But in any case, same thing here. Godzilla, and look, I mean, I just want to say from the cover of this issue, it's the moment we've been waiting for, Brian. The promise of Godzilla existing in the Marvel Universe has finally been fulfilled as Godzilla battles S.H.I.E.L.D., the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers simultaneously.
That's right.
Yeah.
He materializes in Times Square, and Dum Dum and Gabe and Howard, everybody, are in the helicarrier, and basically they're like, oh shit. And Reed Richards shows up and explains to them that the time travel has scrambled Godzilla's brain. And he's now focused his rage on the helicarrier. So Reed's plan, because he's the smartest guy in the room, suggests that they lure Godzilla out to the river.
Right.
And
then it makes sense because they had previously used flares and things like that to lure Godzilla. But now that he's so focused on the helicarrier, yes, they're trying to get him to follow them so that he does the least amount of. And Brian, I don't want to get political on this show, but it is sort of like what the government and the corporatocracy in our country is doing right now. Let's make sure that the businesses are protected.
Yes.
So they're trying to protect the real estate in Manhattan from Godzilla by luring him carefully through the streets out to sea, and that goes pretty well for a short time. Then our young friend Rob, sees Godzilla out the window and is so happy. He's brought to tears by how happy he is that Godzilla is back. Then we get probably my favorite scene in this issue, Brian.
My favorite scene, too. The true hero of the Marvel Universe, a man with no superpowers. He wasn't caught in the heart of a gamma bomb explosion. He wasn't exposed to cosmic rays. He wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider. He has the press on his side. That is, of course, J. Jonah Jameson versus Godzilla, the fight I never knew I wanted to see, but oh my God, it's one of my favorite things ever.
It's such a great moment. Jonah is one of he's certainly top 5, possibly top 2 favorite supporting characters in the history of Marvel. And I will say, who's your favorite cinematic or televised Jonah? Because mine is J.K. Simmons.
Oh, J.K. Simmons, easily. Yeah, I mean, he just as Heath Ledger embodied the Joker, and don't get me wrong, Joaquin Phoenix did a fantastic job, but the Joker for me is always going to be Heath Ledger's portrayal. Simmons's portrayal of J. Jonah Jameson, I don't know how you touch that. I don't know how you top it.
I mean, he brought it to life perfectly, and this is such a classic Jonah moment. And I feel like Jonah is like the one character who's... So his superpower is curmudgeonliness. That's his superpower. It makes, in normal when in other people in the same circumstances that Jonah is in would shit their pants, he is such a cranky bastard that it overcomes his natural fear.
Yep.
Like this scene, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla shows up outside the Daily Planet building. He's peering in Jonah's window. Jonah's first reaction isn't to scream or run away. His first reaction is, why don't we have any reporters out there on the ground? Where's Peter Parker? He's never around when you need him. Give me a camera. I'll take the pictures myself. And then he leans out the window because this is 1970s Manhattan when you could still open the windows on a skyscraper. And he confronts Godzilla.
Yeah. He's face to face with Godzilla and he leans out the window to shout at him, "Watch it, you overgrown lizard. You're messing with J. Jonah Jameson here." And what happens, Brian?
Well, Godzilla is so disdainful of this chattering insect that he does not bother to use his flaming breath on it, but makes his sentiments known, much like J. Jonah Jameson himself, with a blast of hot air.
Exactly. He basically just snorts at Jonah, sending him flying back through his office and smashing some furniture.
No, wait. I want to pause right there. Dungeon Master 77.1. Now, you have not read these, but you, of course...
I want to read that.
Oh, did you hear that, Chris? He wants to read them now.
He should read the whole
J. Jonah
thing.
Jameson from Spider-Man fighting Godzilla.
I would imagine J. Jonah Jameson, like, didn't he once build a Spider-Man robot?
He did once build a Spider-Man robot.
He would just dig that up and use it to...
You hear that, Chris?
See,
He's got a pitch for Marvel right there.
That's right.
J. Jonah Jameson and the Spider Slayer armor fighting Godzilla.
There you go. I think that they should pick up with issue 25 with Dungeon Master at the helm.
That's right. Well, Dungeon Master, it's about to get even better because after Godzilla has faced off against J. Jonah Jameson, we transition to where, Chris?
Avengers Mansion.
That's right.
And the Avengers are gathered there, and this is the classic Avengers lineup of our youth.
That's right.
The Vision,
Captain America.
Iron Man. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, Captain America, Thor, Yellow Jacket, Wasp, Scarlet Witch and Vision, and Iron Man, the classic Avengers lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And who comes blasting into Avengers Mansion but Johnny Storm, a.k.a. the Human Torch, to basically let the Avengers know, because somehow they've remained ignorant for the little period of time Godzilla's been on the rampage, basically... a big green dinosaur is threatened to mash Manhattan, Johnny says. His name's Godzilla, and he can look a skyscraper in the eye. Yellow Jacket, a.k.a. Henry Pym, realizes that the shrink gas didn't do what it was intended to do, or it didn't last anyway. And then the Avengers rush off to the rescue, but someone has to stay behind at the monitors.
Yeah, now, this struck me. In reading these comics as a kid, this never happened in the Avengers. They always just had Jarvis or somebody there to watch the monitors.
Exactly.
But here we have Captain America and Scarlet Witch remaining behind. Obviously, a creative decision on Doug Munch's part. Do you think it's just that he didn't want to overcrowd the issue?
I suspect he didn't want to overcrowd the issue, and if I had to guess, I would suspect that it was because Captain America would be the least effective against Godzilla, and the Scarlet Witch would be the most effective against Godzilla.
That makes sense.
So story-wise, maybe it was just like, okay, well, I don't want to have to bring in Scarlet Witch's powers. He probably knew how he wanted to end this. So he left those characters out. Okay.
All right. So, yeah. The helicarrier continues to lead Godzilla to the river. Rob explains once again to Dum Dum that, you can't calm Godzilla down by attacking him. You would
think that Rob was prescient and had looked ahead and seen the internet.
Yeah. But,
you can't calm Godzilla. You can't calm Godzilla down by attacking him, people on the internet.
But, Dum Dum... We've seen in the last few issues he is having a change of heart towards Godzilla, and he's not sure what to do. And then things get worse because his least favorite thing in the world, superheroes, a bunch of them show up.
Freako costumed clowns, as he calls them. They come flying to the rescue. And then it just becomes a free-for-all. Thor shouts, "Avengers assemble." And I'm so glad that you have the YouTube channel because, folks, if you've never gone and listened to this podcast on YouTube, I really request that you do so with this episode because you need to see these images of Godzilla versus the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, especially, Brian, this panel where Godzilla is firing, he's blasting some flames at them, and it's the Vision and Iron Man and Thor and the Human Torch basically caught up in that fire, but of course they're okay.
Yep.
Each of them. And then you get the face-off Brian Keene only wishes he could have written. The one-on-one.
Thor versus Godzilla?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love the way Herb Trimpe draws this. And remember, this is 1970s Thor, so he says things like this. "Now let us see how yon monster doth fare against the power of mystic Mjolnir." But the way Herb Trimpe draws the next panel, it's this tiny little microscopic Thor going tink with the hammer on Godzilla's face. But the caption tells us it is pain such as Godzilla has never before known.
Yep. Then, Thor pays the price with another blast of fire that shoots him backwards, leaving Brian the need to save the day in the smallest hands in the Marvel universe.
That's right. Yellow Jacket and the Wasp fly into Godzilla's ear to irritate the walls of his vestibular canal, the center of his equilibrium, which induces vertigo and causes him to lose balance and fall into the river.
Which is the end of issue 23. And again, I just love that, the only way to defeat Godzilla is to irritate him until he gives up. And I feel like this is a strategy that is employed by so many people. Issue 24, we cannot let go by without talking. We've mentioned it in previous episodes without talking about the absolutely stunning cover.
Yes,
of issue
gorgeous
24.
cover.
Any Godzilla fan will be in love with this image. It's great.
Yep.
And issue 24, we have our same team. And one of the good things about this era at Marvel and the fact that this is a short run is that we're able to have the same team virtually throughout the whole run. Doug Munch, Herb Trimpe on pencils, Dan Green on inks. The inks changed up a couple times, and I believe we had one or two issues with guest penciler, but kudos to them for sticking with it and for closing it out here with "And lo, a child shall lead them."
That's right. Godzilla rises up out of the river. Now he's pissed. Now it's personal. Yellow Jacket and Wasp escape his ear. And finally, I guess Captain America was leading the Avengers during this era, but Tony Stark finally takes charge. He starts shouting orders as Godzilla heads for the Empire State Building. And I don't know how much of a blow-by-blow we get into here, but you've got the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and S.H.I.E.L.D. all trying to stop him from reaching the Empire State Building.
Yeah. And we get, I think my favorite panel, at least in the early going on this issue, is that panel of Thor standing on the edge of a building, of a roof, with his thought balloon, "Yon dragon doth remind me of the Midgard serpent. And verily this beast may possess even more fury, if not true evil." And I love the fact that he's basically thinking, we're not trying to kill him.
Yep.
So it's a feudal battle, a bit force against brute force. What may we do? So they're trying to stop him before he can reach and destroy the Empire State Building. Maybe they've all seen King Kong and they're worried about what will happen next. Then we get, and let's have a moment, another tangent here, Brian.
Okay.
I am, and let me know if you're concerned about this as well. I am concerned about when the Marvel Cinematic Universe introduces Reed Richards, it not looking stupid. And this is my concern about Kamala Khan, the Ms. Marvel as well. Because her powers are only moderately, like, it's on the verge of silliness on the page. So I'm a little concerned about Reed Richards' stretching abilities and how they're going to look on a movie screen.
Yeah, I've never seen any of the Fantastic Four movies. Not
even the Roger Corman one?
Not even the Roger Corman one. I'm a big fan of Ben Grimm, The Thing.
Me too.
I enjoyed him in Marvel 2 and 1, of which I have every issue. But I have always, ever since I was a little kid, I have thought Reed Richards was a dick.
Well, but he is a dick in the same category as like Namor, and Tony Stark at least is charming.
Well, see, but even Namor, I can get behind. I understand what drives Namor. That's why I'm so looking forward to. Of course, we had him when we covered the Defenders, and I'm so looking forward to getting back to him with Supervillain Team Up starting next week's episode. But I have no use for Reed Richards. So I've never seen any of the Fantastic Four movies, so I don't know how they've portrayed it up till now. But I would certainly think with the money Disney has and the advances in CGI that they could make it look credible, no?
Well, I'm sure they can. It's just going to be, I was going to say a stretch, but even that's just too much for me. No, I stopped myself. No, but I don't know, man. I hope that they can pull it off without making it look silly, mainly because I think Kamala Khan is a really important character, and for so many reasons, and I worry about her powers looking silly, and that might undermine her value as a character. But we'll see. Right. We'll see. It looks fine on the page, but on screen, we'll see. But anyway, tangent over.
Well, Godzilla starts tearing up the city, and the Avengers get distracted by, saving people. Thor hurls a bunch of debris out to sea. Iron Man is rescuing people from a burning building. And J. Jonah Jameson is still wondering, where is Peter Parker? Why is he not taking photos of this?
Yep. We have this panel of Reed Richards trying to wrap his elastic body around Godzilla's snout. We have Rob trying to smash the controls of the helicarrier and getting ordered out by Dum Dum. We do have that scene with Jonah, and then Godzilla has reached the Empire State Building, and here we have, once upon a time, I believe in the pages of Marvel Team Up, but I could be wrong. There was a scene in which Manhattan Island was moved from its location as if the island floated,
right.
As if the writer of that issue thought that islands were floating on the water rather than actually, ground.
I remember that very well.
And at the end, Hercules chained himself to the island and dragged it back to its appropriate location. So this bit of physics that we're about to discuss is second only to that as the silliest thing.
That's right, because Godzilla reaches the Empire State Building, and he starts, pushing on it, trying to climb it.
No, he's trying to push it over.
He's trying to push it over. And it starts swaying. There's people up on the observation deck. So Thor gets on the other side of the Empire State Building, and they engage in a reverse tug of war. Inch for traded inch, the world's premier skyscraper sways back and forth as the full power of two awesome beings is exerted in a fierce give-and-take stalemate.
But again, if the thing breaks enough that it starts to lean in one direction and you're pushing it back the other way, that doesn't mean that you've repaired the damage that was just done.
No.
You know, once you let go, it's going to fall over.
Well, and that's what starts to happen. The facade begins to crack like brittle eggshell, you know. And the Avengers and the Fantastic Four come zooming in.
And then we get the 2-page spread of all time.
Yes.
And the fact that this is not a poster somewhere, I just don't understand. Or a T-shirt. I'd love a T-shirt of this double-page spread.
It's all of the heroes and S.H.I.E.L.D. just blasting Godzilla with everything they have.
Yeah. So again, this double-page spread has the Helicarrier, Iron Man, the Vision, the Wasp, the Yellow Jacket, the Invisible Woman. I'm looking to see what else. Godzilla. Human Torch, and Godzilla is blasting somebody with his fire, maybe just the building. It's such a great double-page spread.
Yep. But
and then,
all their efforts are for naught. And inside the helicarrier, a true hero steps up.
Go ahead.
That is, of course, Rob, who runs out onto the wing of the helicarrier and shouts to Godzilla, you know, over here, it's me, Rob. You got to trust me one more time. And what happens, Chris?
Rob has a tear in his eye, and Godzilla, despite the size differential, is able to see that tear. Rob apologizes. It's all his fault, he says. He's the one who got Godzilla into this. The shrink gas, the cage, bringing him to New York. But Rob says, I did it for your own good, and you've got to trust me again. And Rob, well, all the heroes hold off. S.H.I.E.L.D. holds off. They're all waiting. Possibly because they don't want to hurt Rob, but possibly because Godzilla seems to be listening.
That's right. And he is, because he very gently picks Rob up, you know, much like King Kong with Fay Ray. You know, he lifts Rob up.
Or one of the
gargantuas
gargantuas with the young woman he then chews up and spits out her bloody clothes.
And, you know, Rob tells Godzilla, come on, let's go. And, you know, Godzilla puts him back down on the helicarrier very gently.
Yeah, we should say, Rob wants Godzilla to take him with him.
Yeah.
But Godzilla...
Yeah, he does. And Godzilla's like, no, you belong here with your people. Sits him down and starts heading off and towards the sunset, which is when Peter Parker finally shows up as Spider-Man. A great little one-panel cameo.
Yeah. And oops, I guess I'm late for the party. But he does capture one photograph for the Daily Bugle.
That's right. And then, with one final roar in farewell, Godzilla disappears from view, heading out to the ocean.
Yeah. And then Rob says, I hope you're all satisfied. You can go home now. Godzilla's gone. Godzilla's gone for good. And indeed, he is gone for good from the Marvel Universe.
That's right.
However, I would suggest that Marvel should relicense the rights so they can reprint this and let Dungeon Master 77.1 launch a new Godzilla in the Marvel Universe series.
That's right. That plus the battle that everyone wanted that we never got to see, Hulk versus Godzilla, which I did some research on, Chris.
Yeah.
I mentioned a couple episodes back that we'd talk about that. So there's an interview with Doug Mensch in which he says that, you know, because at the time Herb Trimpe was he was drawing Defenders and he was drawing issues of the Incredible Hulk, and he was sick of drawing the Hulk. So Doug did not include him in the Godzilla series for that reason.
Oh, okay.
But then there's an interview with Herb Trimpe a couple years after that where he denies. He says, oh, no, I would have loved to have drawn the Hulk fighting Godzilla. So that's all I have, but
the world may never know.
The world may never know unless Disney eventually licenses the character again.
Well, and again, I also think that, you know, there's a missed opportunity with Fin Fang Foom, the Eternals, what do you call it? The Celestials, Godzilla versus a Celestial.
I'd pay to see that.
Right? So I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in this concept.
Right.
So
well, folks,
perhaps,
if you thought our Defenders coverage was weird, or our Champions coverage was weird, or Godzilla, you ain't seen nothing yet. Next week, we're going to start Supervillain Team Up. It was I think, 19-issue series, something like that, starring Doctor Doom and Prince Namor the Submariner. It introduces a favorite of both Chris and myself, a hero named the Shroud. Yep. You will see the Circus of Crime. You will see the Red Skull. Mm-hmm. Adolf Hitler makes an appearance.
Of course. It is Supervillain Team Up, after all.
That's right.
I will say that people should be aware, if you're following along with us, I've said many times that there's a full color collection of this available now. I believe the actual title is Supervillains Unite, the complete Supervillain Team Up. And the first 2 issues collected, which are what we're going to cover next week, are giant size Supervillain Team Up 1 and 2.
There you go.
And that'll get us kick off our coverage of Supervillain Team Up.
That's right. Now Dungeon Master is very patiently raising his hand in the background, Chris. Yes, Dungeon Master 77.1.
I might read the first 2 issues of Supervillains Unite, because I have that in there.
All right. He just pointed out that we have those issues, so he wants to read it and join us next week, Chris.
Sounds good. I look forward to co-hosting with Dungeon Master 77.1.
I do, too. So, all right, folks. Again, if you're listening at home, stay safe. And if you're bored, we've got a lot. Every episode we've ever recorded is online and available for free. We invite you to go back and revisit or listen for the first time if you're one of our new listeners who's joining us.
Exactly.
Chris, give everyone what they really need in these times of trouble.
And I will say that next week I anticipate Dungeon Master 77.1 being the one to utter the hearty Excelsior, true believers.
We'll see you next week, folks.